Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from 6. Been a while, but we are checking out proving Madara is a narcissist. I like these kind of videos. So we had, was Goku a sociopath? Was that one? The morals of Goku, and we had one on Minato. Was Minato a psychopath? I think that was another one. So this could be an interesting look into these. I love it. Like 6 has some really good takes on Naruto, man. So let's get into it.
Continuing my series where I
Right.
take a look at
Yeah, so was Goku evil and Minato Psycho. Yeah.
the mental state of certain
He's great.
characters, I'm switching back to Naruto to talk about Madara Uchiha. Madara is one of the greatest antagonists of all time. His goal, while very wild and grandiose, is very believable and seems to be within his grasp, especially when considering how powerful he is. There are a couple ways to show everyone how believable a goal is for a character in your story to accomplish, and Kishimoto goes for the whole he can brute force his way through everything sort of storytelling. If Naruto came with a rule book as to why certain things can't come to pass, Madara takes that rule book and writes except for Madara in crayon below each rule. The 5 Kage are the strongest ninja in the world? Well, they are all going to have to come out to fight this guy. They declare they're going to win? Well, Madara was just holding back to have fun. You lose your Susanoo when you go blind? Not Madara, he'll just use it with no eyes. The 10 tails makes you go insane when you become a Jinchuriki? Not Madara, he's just fine mentally. I'm not going to info dump every example of this because you get the point. Madara makes us think the unaccomplishable can be accomplished simply because of who he is, and he has the personality to back it up and complement this insane power. Madara's entire plan is telling everyone else to f off. He knows
it pretty much is.
what's best for the world, and he is the savior, with his plan to put everyone in the infinite Tsukuyomi dream. We get a decent amount of content on Madara's entire life, and some of the things he said made me wonder if the guy's a straight up narcissist or not, because sometimes the guy seems like one, and in other times maybe not so much. It could be the case that this developed over time, and sitting in solitude for over 60 years with nothing but Zetsu to talk to and his own thoughts, he went slowly deeper and deeper into narcissism to the point where it's almost like a god complex. We'll define narcissism first, then we'll talk about the specific examples as well as going over Madara's upbringing to determine if this is something that developed as part of being someone who loses so many people to the ninja world, or if it's just his character all along. Before we begin, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. These videos are never easy to make and require a great amount of research, so I really would appreciate it.
Subscribe to 6, man. His videos are so good. They're really good takes.
Narcissism. Taking a look at Oxford Language's definition of it, we see 3 different definitions. Which of these can apply to Madara, or can all of them fit the context of his character? Definition number 1 is excessive interest in or admiration of oneself and one's physical appearance. As far as I can remember, Madara has never talked about himself in a way that would lead you to think he's overly proud of his appearance.
Yeah, no.
And if anything, the guy's plan, or at least part of it, is to become gray and scaly, so I guess we can just skip this definition.
Yeah, he's not interested.
The psychological definition is selfishness involving a sense of entitlement, a lack of empathy, and a need for admiration, as characterizing a personality type. Madara definitely has a sense of entitlement. Bro thinks he can decide what's best for the entire world and just force it onto people against any wish they may have.
Yeah, it's like, I don't care. The infinite Tsukuyomi is the way. You will all live in dreams.
He seems to also have a giant lack of empathy. Again, no one wants to be put in this dream, yet he's going to do so anyway.
Yeah.
I will say though, I think Madara may have a lot of empathy at one point, but I'll talk about that later. A need for admiration? Not so much. I've never seen Madara wanting to be admired or anything.
No, it's never like, look at me, what do you think? It's always just been like, he's just up himself, isn't he? He's just like, I know I'm cool.
Like that. Regardless, I think we can get somewhere with that definition, so we'll go with it. But the last one is a psychoanalysis definition. Self-centered, arising from failure to distinguish the self from external objects, either in very young babies or as a feature of a mental disorder. This one is sort of interesting, so I'll definitely be talking about it as well. Now, that is narcissism, but narcissist has a different definition.
Oh.
That being a person who has an excessive interest in or admiration of themselves. This is just another definition that I want to take a look at while going through Madara's character. But, okay, now that we have our outline of narcissism and narcissists, we can start going over Madara's upbringing and whether or not he is or always was a narcissist. Madara was born in the Warring States period, and this was a terrible time to be alive.
Yes,
I've made the
very much
comparison
so.
before about how we wake up and check our phones for notifications, but the people in Naruto wake up and make sure their kunai are sharp enough so that they don't die when they leave
Yeah.
their village.
What a way to live, man. Jesus Christ, like, that's the ninja world. It's like, right, okay, my weapon's alright. Right, now we can leave the house.
In this time period, you'd be afraid to just go to sleep anyway. The life expectancy for shinobi and citizens alike was
12?
both 30 years old. Meaning it didn't matter if you were in the fighting or not, you could be caught as just collateral damage, like you live in Gotham
It just
City or
happens
something.
all the time.
What kept this average life expectancy so low was the deaths of many, many, many children, like Madara and Hashirama were at this time. Madara is one of 5 children, and throughout his life, all of his brothers died. We don't actually know the names of a lot of them. We only know Izuna, that's the one that Tobirama had killed. This is likely what caused Madara to want to find a way to stop the fighting between all of the people at this time. He's already lost 3 brothers and he's only got 1 left now. I obviously don't think his plan was the infinite Tsukuyomi at this point.
Not at
He
the time.
doesn't
He
have the
probably doesn't even know
Sharingan
it
to read
knows
the
it
Uchiha
exists,
Stone
yeah.
tablet or anything. So he actually comes up with his own way, and he actually gives that way for all the fighting to stop. He says, if there were to be a way where neither side had to die, it'd be where both sides revealed their bellies, hid nothing from each other, poured each other drinks, and drank together like brothers. This is extremely mature thinking for a child, but war would make such maturity happen faster. Madara also comments that he thinks this is impossible since one can't really look deep into someone's belly down to their guts, so one or both might actually be seething inside. But he wants this to be possible. He wants there to be a way that this can happen in the future. This to me could possibly show a great deal of empathy, especially for someone in such a war-torn and bloody period. Madara is essentially fighting back and not becoming a product of his environment. I also think a little earlier in this interaction, Madara was showing empathy to a guy he'd met only once. He sees Hashirama sitting by the river, approaches him, and when Hashirama is sad, Madara tells him to talk and that he'll listen. He sort of forces Hashirama to speak in a kind of childish way, but I mean, regardless of the maturity I mentioned for him earlier, he is still a kid
The
after all.
child.
But when Hashirama tells Madara that his brother died, Madara's facial expression changes a lot, and he's speechless for the first time since we were introduced to him. He's also got sort of a delayed reaction. It's probably a trigger for him considering at this point he's lost 3 brothers. The panel where his face shifts, there is an ellipsis leading into an exclamation point, showing that it kind of stunned him a little. For this next bit, I'd like to take a look at something that's sort of played up as a joke when Madara is younger, and that's his fear of someone sneaking up on him and how
From
weird
behind.
he gets when
Yeah,
someone
yeah,
is
yeah.
behind him. This is likely
God, and how that comes into play later. Jesus Christ.
due to the time period he's currently
Consistent.
living in and his current lack of ability. Madara is afraid of being stabbed in the back. Given his reaction to it, I theorized that one of his brothers was killed in this way, or maybe he suffered a major wound for it in the past, but neither of them are hinted at in the original story. I did a video on how to kill Madara where I went a little bit more in depth on this, so you can go check that out if you want to. But for now, let's talk about the guilt Madara feels for not being able to protect his siblings. He actually blames this on his lack of Sharingan. He says that his eyesight isn't actually all that, or else his siblings wouldn't be dead right now. This leads him into saying that he'll protect his brother no matter what, the only brother that he has left at this point. But Madara doesn't mention his dad in that. Given him and Hashirama a similar situation,
Ooh, that is interesting. Damn.
I'd probably guess that Madara didn't care much for his dad, just like Hashirama didn't care much for his dad, especially since his dad and Hashirama's dad were so intent on keeping the fighting that they were trying to stop going on. And keeping the war alive, essentially. Madara awakening the Sharingan is the next really important step for him. It's narrated to us by Hashirama what this is supposed to mean. He decided to completely erase Hashirama from his life. Madara also falls into being a product of his environment here, like I mentioned he was trying to fight against earlier. He still loves his brother obviously, but he's no longer as optimistic about saving the world. He'll protect his brother through fighting and putting down the Senju clan, so that's really all we get about Kid Madara that's relevant to the discussion. I don't think he's a narcissist at this point for sure. I don't think he's even emotionally mature enough to develop something like that, despite how mature he may seem for his age. I'm going to kind of summarize Madara here, but Madara and Hashirama fight all the time from this point on, until one day Izuna is cut down by Tobirama. Madara is offered peace once again by Hashirama, but refuses and runs away. At this point, I think it's probably already too late for Madara. One of the things I appreciate about Naruto and Kishimoto's writing is his ability to tell a story about conflict, but through that same conflict as well. At this point, Madara is already the ultimate product of the Warring States period. He's a strong guy who just can't stop fighting because it's all he's known all his life, and as soon as things get a little rocky again after peace is established, he tries to start the fighting again, but his clan won't follow him this time. So now he's completely alone. No friend, no clan, no brother. He has no one but himself at this point. For this next little tidbit, I want to mention that the only time we learn what I'm about to say is through Obito's retelling of events to Sasuke. Not Madara's own mouth, and not Hashirama's either. And that's the fact that Madara tried to advocate for an Uchiha Hokage, and the entire clan turned their backs on him.
Damn.
The way Obito tells it, the Uchiha proposed a ceasefire, and Madara was opposed to it completely, but then the rest of the clan started to want to do it, and as their leader, he decided to follow their wishes. But as Hashirama tells us, he and Madara fought one day, and at the end of that day, Madara said the only way for there to be peace was for Hashirama to die, and Hashirama was gonna have to do it, blah 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 blah. So there is one of two things going on here, and for the sake of keeping on pace, we'll ignore the possibility that Kishimoto decided to change his mind later on. Possibility number one is that Madara had told Obito a lie about the events of the past. This wouldn't be unlike him, as he manipulated Obito almost his entire life.
Yeah, this whole thing with Obito and everything he told him, it is very likely that he is just, he'll lie to anyone to get what he wants, and it's a very narcissistic trait.
Possibility number
But sometimes believing the lies as well.
two is that Obito was told a correct account of events and manipulated the story to make Sasuke feel bad for him. I find the second possibility to be less likely though, since Obito as Madara also admits to making decisions that would lead him to conflict with Hashirama, and also admits to never wanting to end the war and their mutual hatred, etc, etc, etc. You get the point. I think it's much more likely Madara just lied to Obito. I'll get back to Madara manipulating Obito in a bit, but for now I'd like to take a look at Madara's overall plan and true dream, because like I mentioned in the intro, it's kind of on a grand scale. Madara's end goal is to have everyone on Earth trapped inside the infinite Tsukuyomi, and for him to lead that world with his chakra that he views as the strongest.
Yeah, but then what? I was really intrigued. What would he then do afterwards? You know, like what?
In other words, Madara is the only person who gets a say in what goes down. I think this is incredibly narcissistic. Madara views himself as the savior, and although I'm sure he loves violence, I'm sure he'd be willing to not fight anyone if they just handed over all their Biju and went under the infinite Tsukuyomi quietly. A lot of people will try to twist this as Madara being selfless, but how is Madara being selfless when he wants to become the strongest person to force his will onto the people that don't want what he's offering? It's also really hard to believe that Madara is just this selfless saint who only wants to help the world, when he constantly says things like how he hates this world and rejects it and wants to create a new world. You have people like Hashirama who try to vouch for his character, saying things like Madara is a fundamentally kind man and blah blah blah, but he manipulated multiple kids and set at least one up to die. I think it's very true that on a surface level, everyone should be able to, at the very least, understand Madara's end goal to save everyone, because they'll be in a dream that no one can distinguish from reality. I'm sure that a lot of people in the real world would probably want to interact with a world like that. If Madara only had this idea, it would be fine. It's the way he goes about trying to execute the idea, what has to be done for it, and the things he does in pursuit of the goal. This next part is going to be another part of, oh, Obito said it, but did he get it from Madara, blah blah blah, like I went over earlier. But Obito tells Conan that the only reason Madara engaged in battle with Hashirama was to obtain his powers. In other words, he planned ahead and never expected to win. There are things to support this and things that kind of don't. My interpretation of it would be the fact that Madara wanted to win but also had a backup plan in case he lost. I think this fits the most with Madara's character and the things he did leading up to the fight, as well as the things that happened after the battle, like making the Nine Tails his ally, but I guess ally in this sense is a stretch of the word, considering Madara sort of just forced the guy to bend to his will. You get what I mean. And he also did invoke the time spell on Izanagi so that he could revive in case he was killed. I'm more or less getting at the idea that Madara is not a kind man. He's extremely selfish and he's extremely cruel. I think it's important to remember that Madara is rejecting the world because of the people in it and how it's treated him, which is why his goal isn't to blow up the planet or something like that. He's not mad at the physical earth. I only say this in case anyone wants to try to give Madara an out by trying to misinterpret his words as not meaning the people but the world itself. I think it's fairly obvious, and I'm sure most of the honest thinking people watching this video thought the same way, but unfortunately, that's not all of us. Anyway, I think I've more or less made my point by now. Even if you think Madara's end goal is noble, the method to obtain those goals is not noble. No. It's not kind, and it's not worthy of any praise. He's a manipulative man who wanted to force his will onto the people around him, and while I do sympathize with the fact that Madara was sort of broken and created by the world around him, as I was going over it, there was a point in his life where he actually wanted to stop this cycle, and it was no longer the case come time we met him in chapter 560 when he's introduced in Gorg. Yeah. That all sort of justifies Madara not being kind, but that doesn't make him a narcissist like the title of the video is trying to answer. I think Madara thinking that it should be him who is the savior and he who should have the strongest chakra is fairly narcissistic though. Yeah. An excessive self-interest in himself or admiration for it. To him, he's saving the world, but not to anyone else. This is where I kind of want to end/wrap up the video. I think a lot of what I could say here on out would just be pointless observation. I do, however, think what I was saying may have gotten lost over the course of the video, so I'll make my conclusion clear as water for anyone listening. I think for the majority of his childhood and early adult life, Madara was a fairly selfless person, and over time he grew more powerful and he grew more lonely. I think at that point is when he became a narcissist, as he had no one anymore, and over 60 years to sit alone and just think, likely convincing himself that he was the savior as he thought out the rest of his plan for the infinite Tsukuyomi.
You're just constantly saying, I'll do it, I'll do it, there's no one else that can do it. I am amazing, I am incredible, I will do this, I will do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, do this. And then having Zetsu as well, probably, because Zetsu needs Madara to achieve this, so he's just going to big him up as well and be like, yeah, you can, man, you can totally do this, no one's going to do this, you can do this, just so that he can get, Kage come back. But yeah,
just as easily could have handed the job off to Obito and had him become the savior after he died permanently, never meant to revive him, but instead Madara decided he should be the one to save everyone and possess the most powerful chakra and cast the infinite Tsukuyomi. So do I think Madara is a narcissist? Yeah, probably. Or at the very least, he's very self-centered. Now, this kind of puts me in a weird spot because I defined two different words at the beginning of the video. One of them was Narcissist and the other was Narcissism.
Sism.
I think naturally everyone would think a narcissist shows traits of narcissism, but that doesn't appear to be the case, at least not within the definitions on Oxford Languages. Madara does lack the need for admiration that one of the definitions describes, and as far as the psychoanalysis definition I outlined, I couldn't really find any of those traits in Madara, at least not through my reread of the story while researching this video. The closest thing I could find for Madara looking for admiration was just him wanting people to follow him when doing the Infinite Tsukuyomi plan, but I think that hardly counts as wanting or needing admiration. Anyway, that's pretty much all for the video. If you like the video, obviously, please leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel, and other than that, have a nice day.
Groovy. Cool look. Love that. That was class. And yeah, he's gone and uploaded another one, which we will check out whenever I get round to it. I'm going out to party. In fact, whilst this video is uploaded, I'm out partying for my birthday. Ha ha ha. So you can leave some super thanks to buy me some beers while I'm out if you want. That'd be nice. But yeah, we've also got the ungodly amount of chakra that Naruto possesses. So we'll check that out at some point. I've got loads of videos that I want to check out. I'm just so goddamn busy. And I've got days off to party now for my birthday, which is awesome. So that was a good video. Like that. Make sure you check out my Etsy shop. Links in the description for t-shirts and hoodies that I've designed. And thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, link in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is our support, so that's greatly appreciated. Thank you guys for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe, however, leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch for some future videos. I'll see you guys all next time.